Right, okay, back again, having a look at our combat patrol, and I'm doing the relayering process now on my Emperor's Sons. Now, because I did my own split paint scheme on this one, I've basically ended up with my Wraithbone looking very dirty and very messy in order to get the wash in. The actual purple side, well, that doesn't look as bad because, you know, it's Carroburg over the top of it. But what it's really done is darkened every single part of it. I do want to keep some of that darkness, but I want to try and pull some of it away. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start off with my Wraithbone. And I'm going to do the relayering on the Wraithbone, being, you know, very careful about how I layer this in. Because I really do actually need to pull back quite a bit of the colour on this because it's just become very dirty. But without actually losing the shadow that I've created. Now what that means is I'm just trying to be very careful, particularly like where you've got like little shelves, for want of a better word, you know, where like the lip of the armor goes over. I'm trying to very carefully not go too deep into that recess. But wherever the actual armor is clearly going to be hit by whatever light sources are around, get it properly relayered. And it can be very difficult, particularly when you're trying to get inside these little panels. As you can see, I'm trying to keep the shadow remaining effectively. And it's such a hot day that my paintbrush is instantly drying, even with a wet palette. I'm just trying to really get the light working while keeping the dark. I'm having a bad day with my hands again. Joys of suffering from a undiagnosed neurological condition that no one has an idea of what I got. Never mind. Then. Now, this is going to be a hard part to get right, the actual shoulder pad, because really you don't want that having too much dirt and grime. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I was doing something like a death guard, then a bit of dirt and grime works, but not with our proud loyalists. I'm having one of those days where I'm trying to twist myself into just the right positions and keep my brush nice and wet. Now, with this helmet in particular, I do want to keep those very dark, deep shadows. I don't want to lose what I've got there, so I'm really just trying to touch up around the edges. Yeah, because I really want to keep that depth and deepness to the colours. Now, around the rim, I can have a bit more lightness because the light would be hitting there. This part here, it's difficult sometimes because particularly when you're using like a wash, it can create a streaky effect. Oh gosh, which isn't the same thing as having like good shadow, so to speak. That's how I've always found it anyway. So you can't just kind of say to yourself, well, I'll leave this bit like that because, you know, that's in a shadow, because if it's pulled too wrong, it can kind of leave it looking just like, well, dirty, like it's been heavily rained on or something. So having that kind of streaky griminess works for something like Death Guard, but not exactly great for this. But I am going to try my best to keep a certain amount of that darkness, particularly where, like, between the leg here, I want that to stay. Okay, now on the arms. Into that there, that's pretty much good as well because I made a little mistake, and that's our Wraithbone done. Now let me just pull something up. So I've brought this guy here just so hopefully you can see the difference now between the relayered and the one that hasn't been. It's only a subtle difference, it's not like massive difference, but it's enough to get rid of the streakiness and the griminess. Obviously I'm going to do this guy, but you know, I think it's somewhat redundant to show you how to do it on every single model when I can show it once. Right, next thing to do, relayering with my Baraknar Burgundy. So the wash layer on this was Carroburg Crimson. Now that beautifully darkened the actual miniature, and I like it. I love the fact that it darkened it so much, to a point where actually the relayering on this is going to be nowhere near as extreme. Basically, I am only going to relayer the very tips. Which is basically effectively highlighting, although rather than just like kind of trying to highlight a very thin tight area, what I'm actually doing is I'm highlighting a wide area, because as I said, it's just made that colour such a rich deep purple. I love it, and it's going to work so well later on when I add some extreme highlights on it. So when I actually get around to the full highlighting process and I really just pick up all of the edges in a very bright colour, hopefully this should pop just right. As you can see, I'm really only trying to hit the edges. I don't want to lose the darkness that I've developed on this. Right, there's a very good chance that that's not even showing properly on the camera, what I've actually done there on as far as the highlights are concerned. But what I've basically done is I've only really focused on the very kind of edges. Hit that point there as well, because that's like where a lot of the light would hit. Right, there we go. That is basically how simple the relayering is on my Space Marines, on my Emperor's Sons. Can't wait until I actually get to the next phase of this, where I actually do some proper edge highlighting to really pick up the edges, but that will be obviously in a future video. But for now, what I've done is I've properly relayered the bronze to get rid of some of the streakiness. If I kind of look at it later on and see that I haven't quite got rid of the worst of the streaks, I'll probably go over it again with some Wraithbone. Same with this, you know, I'll have a look at it in different lights, different positions, to see if I've, you know, properly picked up. It's subtle, it's not obvious, but it is there, these slight pickups of different colour with the Baraknar Burgundy. And of course I've got to do that across the whole range of Space Marines, so that should be a lot of fun. Other than that though, that's where we're up to on this. So that's just quickly the relayering process now for the Emperor's Sons after you've done the wash. So thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.